If you are a person who has been trying to achieve a goal, get somewhere in your life, and you have been struggling with actually staying motivated, staying consistent, and getting to the place where you have achieved the things that you want in life, this series is going to be so beneficial for you. I'm going to be going through a series of several individuals and looking at what their lives look like, what are their goals that they want to accomplish, and how can they sustainably reach those goals without burning themselves out, constantly feeling like a failure, and without sacrificing the things that they are enjoying about their lives currently. Okay, so the first person that we have for our case study is Laura. She is 29 years old. She's a creative and she wants to write a book within the next 6 months. She has a big vision, but no idea where to start. And the first thing off the bat after looking at Laura's goal is 6 months is an interesting deadline to me. I'm actually curious about where this is coming from. Is there a reason why you're putting a 6-month deadline on yourself? Does that feel like something that's going to motivate you to hit the goal by a certain time? Is there a certain intention behind this decision, or is it an unnecessary pressure that you're putting on yourself? I'm going to go with the 6-month deadline for today's case study, but Laura, feel free to adjust this as you see fit, because sometimes when we start making an actual plan, we realize that the deadline we're putting in place isn't actually relevant. It doesn't matter that much. It's definitely not the biggest thing to focus on. It's more about considering our capacity, our energy levels, and what is going to allow us to sustainably move the needle forward. So for anyone else who's listening, if you have goals that you have set for yourself and they do have deadlines and those deadlines keep passing, I would encourage you to ask yourself, why am I even putting a deadline on this to begin with? It's not motivating me. It's not moving the needle. If anything, it's just making me feel like more of a failure. It's making me feel more pressure. So I set take action by days, but I don't necessarily love deadlines unless we're talking about like a deliverable for someone else that has a required date that it needs to get done. So we're going to go into her profile a little bit deeper. I asked Laura if she currently is working, and she said, yes, I work full-time as a marketing coordinator for a mid-sized company. I usually work around 40 to 45 hours per week, but sometimes more if I have big projects or deadlines. Okay, so off the bat, this sounds like she has a very typical job that sometimes can be more demanding, but she's working the normal amount of hours. She's not working 60, 70 hours a week. She's not overstretching herself, as long as, this is truthful and not hopeful. Sometimes people can answer these questions as like what they're supposed to be working, not what they're actually working. So Laura and anyone else who is considering the goals that they're setting, just make sure that you're really being realistic about the average number of hours a week that you are working. But we're going to go with the 40 to 45 hours a week, and then maybe add in a little bit extra, since she did mention that she has big projects or deadlines that may affect that. I also asked Laura if she has a family and what is the current family structure and dynamic. She currently lives with her boyfriend. She has a dog, no kids, but between work, social commitments, and keeping up with life, her schedule always feels packed. I feel like this is something that comes up in our life a lot as a theme that I see among people, is just if you are somebody who likes to be busy or who has a fear of resting, not being busy, you will always fill your schedule no matter what is going on in your life. You could have 10 kids, you could have 0 kids, but you are the type of person that's going to fill up your schedule. If you are the type of person who spends money, it doesn't matter if you're making $100 a week or $1 million a week, you are going to spend the money. So one thing I would say about this is becoming aware of the habits that you have. Maybe not everything that you're packing your schedule with is actually a necessity. Maybe it's not even something that you are enjoying, but really getting more diligent about the commitments that you're making and the things that you're spending your time on, making sure that they align with your values and your priorities and your goals that you want in your life. Okay, next I asked her about her commitments that she has on a regular basis. She works out a few times a week. She volunteers once a month for a local arts nonprofit. She loves reading and going to writing workshops, but she feels like she spends more time learning about writing than actually writing her book. Her weekends usually fill up with social plans or errands. By the time she has free time, she's exhausted. Oh my God, raise your hand if that's you. Then I asked her if she's made any progress toward this goal so far, and she said she's made a little progress, but not nearly as much as she'd like. She said she started researching what she needs to do and has attempted to fit it into her schedule, but she keeps falling off track. She'll get motivated for a couple days, and then something always seems to come up and she pushes it aside. This is like classic productive procrastination. That's kind of hard to say. Laura, if I were working with you one-on-one and coaching you, I would actually be making time right now before we even make a plan for writing your book. I would be making time for us to actually look at the fears that you're having around writing the book, publishing the book, being seen, because some of the time when we are working toward something that is going to require us to be perceived or seen in the world by other people, we're doing our most vulnerable things in life, sharing some of our most vulnerable parts of us, that can actually hold us back. Even if we're not consciously aware of it, we can have these fears that are so deeply rooted inside of us that we don't even notice that they're there. But our brain will put things in front of us that feel more comfortable, and we will naturally go for those because that feels like a more safe space. So one of the things that I would encourage you to do is to look at some of the fears, journal on what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of happening if I write this book? What am I afraid is going to happen if I publish this book? If people read this book, what am I afraid of? And once you are able to bring those insecurities or fears to the forefront of your mind, you can start to work with them, transform them, overcome them, so that it's easier for you to step into the version of you that you need to be in order to write this book. The other issue here is that you're using motivation as your needle mover instead of sticking to a sustainable plan that really works for you, for your life, and getting you to where you want to go. We can't always rely on motivation to push us forward because we're not always going to be motivated. But if we have a plan, we are more likely to stay committed, stay consistent, even when we're not feeling up to it. One of the things I really like to do when I'm working on a goal that requires this consistency is having different levels of effort for myself. So if I'm feeling like an effort level 1, then I will do something that is not as labor intensive as if I was at an effort level 3. If I have to write a certain amount of pages every single day, maybe an effort level 1 is 3 pages. Maybe an effort level 3 is 20 pages. And having these ranges for yourself so that you're still making progress forward, even on those days where you're not feeling motivated, you don't have a lot of energy, but you are able to say, okay, maybe I can't do the 20 pages today, but I can definitely commit to 3. Let's just start at 3. And then if I end up getting more inspiration or motivation once I start writing, amazing. But there's no pressure to do more than I have capacity for. The next thing that I asked Laura is, if you had to guess, what would you say the biggest hindrance in making time for your goal is? And she said, honestly, I think it's a mix of feeling like I should be prioritizing other things, work, family, daily responsibilities, and just not knowing how this goal fits into my life consistently. I tell myself I'll get to it when things settle down, but they never do. Oh my gosh, who else feels that way? Honestly, we're like always waiting until things calm down, but like they never will. Or when things go back to normal, never. So she said she struggles with feeling guilty for taking time for herself when there's always something else that needs her attention. Are we a people pleaser, Laura? Maybe a little bit. Okay. One of the things that I want to note here is that when you sit down to write, you are likely putting so much pressure on yourself to catch up from all of the days that you missed and you're also wanting to plan ahead for all of the days that you might miss in the future. And you said you're already exhausted from your day. So naturally, all of the creativity that you wanted to have to sit down and write this book is completely obliterated. So going back to the effort levels that I was speaking of in the previous question, you want to give yourself parameters. That way you don't feel like you have a never ending amount of pages that you have to write. If you give yourself a very specific task to complete with this, you can still feel accomplished and good even if you write 1 page, 3 pages, instead of feeling like, okay, I haven't written in forever. I've got all of these other commitments coming up, so I'm probably not going to be able to write for a really long time. Oh my gosh, I feel so tired. It's 9 o'clock at night. Why am I sitting down to write right now? I should have prioritized this earlier. Like, you have so much going on in your brain when you sit down to write this thing. There is no room for the creativity to come through. If you set the parameters first of how much you're going to write in a specific day, you can have that in your mind as you go throughout the day. And then you can also know that you don't have to make up for what was missed, and you don't have to plan ahead for what you might miss in the future. You have a very solid, consistent plan to move the needle forward, and there's no reason to put any extra pressure on yourself. Keep that in mind as you are making time for your goal, alleviating the pressure as much as possible, and creating a structure that allows you to do that is going to be really important. Now that we have the background on Laura, I really want to take the time to go through and plan out her specific goal. The first thing that I do is I break down this goal into milestones. I like to work backwards. If I were Laura and I was going to write a book, the last thing that I am going to do is publish the book. Then the step before that is probably to finalize final draft. Step before that. And there might be some things in between this. This is a good time to use ChatGPT or some sort of AI tool to help you fill in the blanks. Okay, finalize first draft, have editor, edit book, finalize first draft. And again, like, you can add more milestones to this along the way as well. So let's say you end up with 5 different drafts. You could add more drafts in here, more milestones that you want to accomplish as you go through the process. The reason I like using Notion or some type of digital tool is because you can always adjust it, add more to it as you go through the process, because it's never going to be exactly as you expected it to be. So being able to adjust, take action by dates, being able to adjust the actual milestones that are within this is going to be very beneficial for you. Okay, before you finalize the first draft, you're going to want to, let's say, write the ending, write each chapter, write the preface if applicable, write the dedication, and maybe these are in different orders, right? And you could break it down, like if you know that you're going to have 10 different chapters, then you could add those as different milestones, like write chapter 1, write chapter 2, write chapter 3. Those would be different milestones, in my opinion. Let's say maybe we say decide on chapters. Choose a title. Maybe you need to choose an editor. Decide whether self-publishing or using a publisher. Set a schedule for writing. Okay, I'm guessing that you already know what your book is about because you said you've already started doing some work on the book. So if you just wanted to write a book, I would probably add some more milestones about what the book is going to be about, the breakdown of content pillars within the book, the main idea, all of that good stuff, but I'm guessing you kind of have that already. So let's start with this list here, and then we'll set your plan in place. So once you have all of your milestones laid out, you want to add take action by days. So we're going to add a date column in here. We need to set a schedule for writing today. That's what we need to decide today. We're going to need to decide whether we're self-publishing or using a publisher. I don't know, probably by the 6-month mark. Let's see. Okay, so it's March, April, May, June, July, August, September. So let's say by August, we want to decide if we're self-publishing or not. And we're going to sort these in ascending order. Okay, choose an editor. Well, let's do that by August as well, because if you're self-publishing, you may need to find your own editor, but if you're going through a publishing company, they likely have editors that you will work with. Choose a title. You really don't need to choose the title until before you publish it. So maybe before you start your pitches to a publishing company, you would want to have the title decided. So maybe we say by, let's say July 1st, because maybe you want to start pitching maybe you want to start pitching by July 1st. So let's choose a title by then. We want to publish the book. Sorry, I'm kind of working forward and backwards here. Maybe we want to publish the book by September 30th. Okay. Now we have decide on the chapters. So that could go one of two ways, actually. You could build the chapters first, or you could decide on what the chapters are after. It kind of depends on your writing technique. So I'm going to go with if you were just free writing all of the time and then you end up breaking those out into chapters afterwards, I'm going to use this as deciding on the chapters at the very end, how you want to break those up. So in that scenario, I'm going to say also by July 1st, that's when you need to decide on the chapters. So we're deciding chapters and title by July 1st. All right, then write the dedication, write the preface. The dedication and the preface, I think, could be done after you have started researching publishers. I don't know that for certain, but I want to say that could be probably the very last thing that you add to the book. So maybe just by the end of August, you decide to have those things done. Okay, write each chapter. So knowing that, we need to choose an editor by August 1st. We need to start looking for the editor in July at some point. You need to have your chapters written by, I would say, mid-June. So if you're writing all of the chapters, I would kind of include the ending in that. So we'll add that to mid-June as well. And then you need to finalize that first draft of the book by July 1st, I would say. So let's change up, decide on chapters, and choose a title. I'm kind of going more general here, but let's get more specific. By June 23rd, you want to decide on chapters and choose a title. By June 15th, you want to have all of the chapters and the ending finished. And then by July 1st, you want to have the first draft finalized. That way you can start sending that to publishers and or editors. And then we need to finalize the final draft of the book by September 1st in order for that to go to printing. You've written the preface and the dedication by August 31st. Your final first draft is going to be by September 1st. And then if that's the case, let's see, have the editor edit the book by, it's going to be quick. I don't know if an editor can edit this fast, but I'm kind of thinking you don't have a whole lot of time. Essentially, you have March, April, May, and then June. So you have 3 months to actually write the book. And then all of the other stuff is going to need time for you to edit, for you to find people. You want to make sure that you are making time for all of those things. When I say consider how much capacity you actually have, and deadlines are kind of just made up things that we don't actually think through, this is what I'm talking about. You have now put yourself on a really, really tight deadline. Can it be done? Absolutely. But for you to write a book, depending on how long you want it to be, depending on how much of it you already have written, it's going to possibly require a lot of adjustment in your current lifestyle. Because if you want to hit that deadline of finalizing the first draft by July 1st, then we've got some work to do. But again, it depends on how many pages you want to write, but let's take a look at this. Okay, so if you wrote 3 pages a day and you had 3 months to do it, would be 90 days, essentially. So 3 times 90, that would give you 270 pages. To be honest with you, that would be a really solid book. I don't even think that most books are that many pages. That's a pretty big book. And also it depends on how big you're writing and all that good stuff. But that would be 270 pages of text. So I think the best way to approach this is to set a writing schedule of 3 pages a day on a high energy day, 1 page a day on a low energy day, and then 2 pages a day on a, meh, kind of in the middle energy day. I think that's going to be the best case scenario, and that will get you 270 pages by the end of 90 days. So it wouldn't even take you 6 full months to get a whole book written. I think that's really cool. So ideally, you want to be doing the 3 pages per day as often as possible. But on the days that you can't reach 3 pages per day, that's okay too. I mean, let's say that you do 3 pages per day on average, and then, some days you do 2, some days you do 1, you're still going to have over 100 pages, which is really incredible. You could also reverse engineer this by saying, okay, I want to have about 150 pages to my book. How many pages would I have to write a day if I wanted to get to 150 in 90 days? Or if you wanted to break it down into, okay, I only want to write 3 days a week. How many pages do I need to write on those 3 days in order to get to the 270 pages that I want to write, or whatever? So you can look at that a couple different ways, Laura, but hopefully this is a good starting point for you. And then we're just going to add in one more thing here for status. And this one we're going to say is in progress. So the next thing that I would do here is I would take your schedule for writing the 3 pages per day. I would add that to your daily routine and I would put it on your calendar. This is the most important part of the process that I help my clients with, is actually committing to this by scheduling it. If you don't schedule it, you're going to continue to fall into the same patterns and routines that you're already used to. So if you actually put it on your calendar, you're more likely to implement the habit and start committing to the progress of the goal. Even if you miss a couple days, or, it takes a bit of an adjustment period for you to really get in the swing of this new habit that you're creating, you will be doing it more consistently than you are right now. So that's really where I would start with all of this. So the other thing to consider in this situation is you don't have kids, you work out, you volunteer once a month, you have a regular schedule. You want to make time for this at the most creative part of your day, which is the morning. Typically, for most people, sometimes you can get into the creative flow at night, or maybe it's midday. But with you working a normal job, which I'm guessing is 9 to 5, 8 to 5, something along those lines, you're not going to be able to have that flexibility. I'm assuming this. You're not going to be able to have that flexibility to just in the middle of your day go write 3 pages for your book. I personally would recommend starting with writing first thing in the morning when you wake up. If you are a coffee drinker, a tea drinker, and you have a little morning ritual for yourself, add writing 3 pages to your morning routine. Make it one of the first things you do before all of the hustle and bustle of the day is being presented to you, is being dumped on you. The last thing you need is to be worried about what happened today, what did get done, what didn't get done, and try to be writing your book. It sucks the creativity out of everything. So if you can make the time to do this early in the morning before you go to work, before you've got your workout in, before you have committed to all of the commitments that you've made, put this first. Not only is it important to show up for yourself and always put yourself first, but it's also going to give you the best opportunity at getting in your most creative flow. And I think that's going to be really, really important for you, Laura. When you are thinking about scheduling this on your calendar, I would just consider when is going to be the most beneficial part of your day for you to fit this in. Okay, everyone, I hope this was helpful. Laura, thank you so much for being a part of this case study and for giving me the opportunity to help you out and break down your goal and give you this roadmap. If you want to be the next Laura and get your goals broken down like this in your specific situation, please go ahead and fill out the form below. It is completely free, and I will review your case, and then I will break it down on here and give you the roadmap to your success. Thank you so, so much for being here today. I would love to know what is one takeaway that you have gotten from this episode. Please share this and give it a like if you enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I am wishing you well on your week ahead, and until next time, take care.